I wanted to be at Texas State. I chose to be at Texas State. I'm from Texas. That was important to me. I always knew if the right guy got this job, you better watch out.
You better watch out. This is Win Now or Get Bent, episode 163. If you don't already know, I'm Kev Tardello, coming to you on Friday, August 30th, and we've got a game tomorrow. That's right. All this anticipating, all this waiting, it's all over when the ball kicks off tomorrow night. Texas State Bobcats hosting the Lamar Cardinals at UFCU Stadium. Ooh, baby. Can't wait over here. We'll be there. We'll be there as a pod, as an entire unit. I know a lot of you sickos will be out there as well. Give me a shout. I can't wait to see y'all out there. I want to go shake some hands, see some people at the tailgate. Plenty to talk about this episode. We have a depth chart for the Bobcats that we're going to go over. And then we've also got an awesome preview for this game coming up. Lamar Cardinals versus the Texas State Bobcats. But before we get there, this episode is brought to you by First Lockhart National Bank. That's right, new sponsor alert. As the largest financial institution headquartered in Caldwell County, First Lockhart National Bank expanded to San Marcos in 2018 and opened a state-of-the-art branch on Hunter Road in 2020. For the past 6 years, FLNB has provided a wide range of financial services that have significantly improved the quality of life for the San Marcos community and beyond. Whether you need personal or business checking accounts, business loans, or home mortgages, they've got you covered. Plus, they offer innovative services like video banking, business banking, and a top-of-the-line mobile banking app. FLNB is also a huge supporter of Texas State football, standing out as one of the largest initial investors in NIL deals for Bobcats players. Be sure to follow them on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at First Lockhart, and on Instagram at First Lockhart to stay in the loop. Shout out to Gil Hodges, Senior Vice President at FLNB in MLS number 2475765, a proud Texas State grad and a diehard fan. We're thrilled to be partnering with Gil and FLNB all season long. You can find them at 2507 Hunter Road. That's 2507 Hunter Road, or give them a call at 512-504-7422. Again, that's 512-504-7422. First Lockhart National Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions may vary. Shout out to First Lockhart National Bank. Always nice to read a new sponsor, just like I'm about to right now. Hey, Bobcat Nation. Looking for your next real estate move? McNabb and Company Real Estate Services has been proudly Bobcat owned and operated for over 15 years. They're your go-to team for buying, selling, investing, and managing properties and everything in between. Whether you're a fan or an alum, they've got you the local expertise and full service support you need. Call them today at 512-667-9129. Again, that's 512-667-9129, or visit them at mcnabbandco.com. Again, that's mcnabbandco.com, MCNABB, mcnabbandco.com. McNabb and Company, where Bobcats find their home. Give them a follow on Instagram, Facebook, and on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at McNabb and Co. Shout out to Monica, one of the realest Texas State fans out there. She's been listening to the pod, and now she's sponsoring it, helping us out. Can't thank her enough. We're going to be doing some cool stuff with McNabb and Co. Check us out. We'll be doing an episode at Zelix this season. So I am very excited for that. Lots to talk about. Same with First Lockhart National Bank. We're going to be doing an episode at their branch this season. So that'll be fun. Keep your eyes peeled for that one. I've got another one for you right here. TGC LLC. We know them well. We've been hearing them for a long time. The GalindoCollective.com. That's Galindo, GalindoCollective.com. A team of professional consultants dedicated to helping others realize their business potential through people planning and practice. Their services cover a wide range of areas such as business strategy, marketing, human resources, and financial planning. If you own property or a business and want to maximize its profitability, contact TGC at thegalindocollective.com and follow their social media platforms on Twitter, X, at TGC_LLC, and on Instagram and Facebook. Shout out to Rick Galindo, a true Texas State sicko, a Texas State grad. It's been with us since last season, with us through all this season once again. So thank you so much to the Galindo Collective, Galindo, thegalindocollective.com. All right, one more real fast. We know this one as well. Chilsey, CHILLZEY.com, Chilsey.com. You can get custom tumblers, custom koozies. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, Win Now or Get Bent on YouTube, you can see me holding up a Win Now or Get Bent tumbler right here. If you punch in Bobcats at your checkout, when you order 6 or more of these tumblers, it could be a Win Now or Get Bent one or any logo that you want. They are $15 a piece with that code. They also have custom koozies. Oh, started out holding them upside down. Bam, there you go. Win now or get bent koozies. You can get any custom koozies you want. Chilsey's got you covered. CHILLZEY.com. Shout out to Dennis Redding, True Tech State Sicko, a Tech State grad. He's helping us out once again this season. Check them out. Chilsey.com. CHILLZEY.com. Boom. There you go. A little bit longer ad reads this time, huh? We're getting to it. We're getting to the season now. I appreciate y'all listening to those ads and supporting those businesses that support us. I want to make sure whenever we do bring in sponsors, it's not just some random sponsor. They are I want them to be Bobcat businesses or Bobcat adjacent type businesses, so that we can get some help out their businesses while they help out our business. That's what I want. Bobcats helping Bobcats. And speaking of Bobcats helping Bobcats, if you're watching on YouTube, Win Now or Get Bent on YouTube, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. We're getting close to 500 subscribers, which would be big for us. You can see I'm pointing to it right now. Yeah, there we go. There's a nice Texas State helmet in the background. That will be featured on every episode now. Shout out to my guy Brant Freeman. You all know him, voice of the Bobcats, face of the Bobcats. What is he, voice or face? He's both. He's on the ESPN Plus broadcast, calling these Bobcat games, all the sports. He hooked me up. He gave me that helmet. He didn't even really have a great reason. He just kind of gave it to me. He knew I would appreciate it, and I very, very much do. It is now a cherished family heirloom for my. You gotta start new traditions. This will be one that will be passed down generations. This helmet here. I'm gonna get Brant back. I got something, a good present in mind for him. But how cool is that? Another great piece of memorabilia for the background of the show. Yeah, there you go. Bobcats helping Bobcats. Gave me an awesome helmet, white helmet with Super Cat on it. Looks great in that background. I'm leaned a little more to the right so that you guys can see it. Display it today. I'll find a really good spot to display it. We'll show that one off. All right, but let's get to the meat of this sandwich here. Let's talk about these Bobcats. Lots to talk about. We didn't get the initial depth chart until Wednesday, because it's a pretty big depth chart. There's 14 positions on defense. GJ Kenny, we've known this about him. He loves putting or on the depth chart. They'll designate that or by the name. So this guy could be the starter or this guy could be the starter. And you see it between second and third, ors all over the place. So many ors. He could be a rowing coach instead of a football coach, but we'll deal with it. But I guess, all the names they had to put on it took them a little longer to get it loaded. Why there's 14 positions is they're going to be real multiple. They're going to change it up. I mean, they have 5 different positions for D linemen listed. They have 4 for linebackers. Don't imagine we'll ever see a 5-4-2 defense. That would be something. That'd be fascinating. You'd probably catch those way back in the day. But they're keeping everyone guessing. It'll be interesting to see. This is a different defense this year with Dexter McCoyle as co-DC, Bradley Del Pavito as co-DC, instead of just one DC. It'll be interesting to see how different it is from last year. But we got that depth chart. We got to see who's shaking out where. Not a ton of surprises in some spots. Not really a ton of surprises throughout it, really. I mean, we did a guess the depth chart segment not too long ago, kind of the beginning of August, where we not too far off from everything that we saw in fall camp. Maybe some stuff at DB that is interesting. Jordan Polk, shout out Jordan Polk. We talked a little bit about him. TAMU Commerce transfer. It looks there's an or designation at that star position, that nickel cornerback, but he's the first name listed there. But let's go through. Let's go through the Bobcats depth chart, and then we'll do a little preview of the Lamar Cardinals as well. We're going to start on offense with quarterback Jordan McLeod. No surprise there. He was officially named the starter, although GJ Kinney at the press conference on Tuesday did say RJ Martinez, the Baylor transfer, he is also going to play on Saturday. I believe they're anticipating a game in which they can play multiple quarterbacks to get them reps. We'll see. We'll see how it goes any given Saturday. But yeah, Jordan McLeod, the starter, RJ Martinez, number 2. And then there's an or for number 3. PJ Hatter listed first, then Brad Jackson behind him. So we'll see if hopefully they never have to genuinely go to that third option. But it'd be interesting to see what they did. I'd imagine they'd put in PJ Hatter, even though Brad Jackson has looked really good. If you listen to the last episode, actually, Zach Webb, our great producer, the Wizard, he came on the webisode. Great. I highly recommend it. Go check that out. And we kind of discussed PJ Hatter versus Brad Jackson a little bit there. But running back, no or at the starter with Ish Mahdi. No surprise there. Led the nation in all-purpose yards last year. Just an all-purpose stud. So put him in there. Let him do his thing. But then there's ors all up and down below it. I even saw, because Deion Hankins, UTEP transfer, he's the last name listed of the 5. And I saw someone go, how can Deion Hankins be the 5th running back? But this isn't necessarily 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 1 and then 2A, B, C, and D. So below Ishmadi, we have Jalen Jenkins, Washington State transfer, new guy. Torrance Burgess, a UTEP transfer, 2 UTEP transfers on this list. Lincoln Perry, we know Lincoln Perry led the team in rushing in 2022, missed all of last year with an ACL. He is back. And then Deion Hankins. All of those running backs can play. That is a deep running back room. GJ Kinney has talked a lot about his working under Gus Malzahn. Gus Malzahn likes to use a ton of running backs, 5 to 7 running backs. He didn't get to do a ton of that last year. It's more so like 3 to 4. But we'll see if Kinney gets his wish and he's really going to use that many running backs. They'll at least use 3 of them pretty frequently. We saw that last year. Tight end, Connor Fox, no or by his name. He's the starting tight end. No surprise there. Kansas State transfer, had a little bit of an injury in the early to middle part of the season. Came back and finished the season. Senior year now for Connor Fox. Titus Lyons behind him. Shout out Titus Lyons. Still in the mix, Titus. They bring in all these tight ends, and you're still in the mix. Shout out to Titus Lyons. Good stuff. Good stuff from him. There's an or by his name, and the or has Griffin Moore below him. I believe that's the Illinois transfer, if I have that correctly. Yeah, because Blake Smith is the OU transfer. We'll talk about him in a sec. But then after Griffin Moore, this would be the 3rd tight end, no or by his name. Jake Simpson, he was a JUCO transfer last year. And then Michael Boudin III, who was just playing nickel, was playing at that star position is what they call it. But he is now a tight end. So going from DB to tight end, interesting stuff. 6'4", 225, local guy from Buda, right up the street, Hayes High School. That's an interesting switch. He's just listed at 225. You got to imagine that's pass catching tight end territory. He's not much blocking going on there. Blake Smith, though, the OU transfer, I don't know the timetable or when exactly everything happened, but it appears he tore his ACL at some point. I don't know when exactly it was. I feel like I remember seeing him in spring football. Maybe I'm misremembering that because they do have a lot of new tight ends, but I don't know. I don't know his status, but there is that he is injured, which might go into why they moved Michael Boudin over to tight end. But let's go to wide receiver. They have 4 wide receiver positions listed. We'll go with the starters. Chris Don Jr., true freshman last year, worked his way up in his starting lineup. Cole Wilson, remember Cole Wilson, second in yards. I think he was 3rd in receptions last season. Really good receiver, kick returner as well. Ran one back for a touchdown. Joey Hobart, no surprise there. And Jaden Williams, the BC transfer, somewhat of a local guy from Pflugerville, just north of Austin, worked his way into the starting lineup as well. Here's the heights of these starting wide receivers. Chris Don, 5'7", Cole Wilson 5'9", Joey Hobart 5'11", Jaden Williams 5'11". Not the tallest group, fast group, great hands in the whole group, but interesting how they're not the biggest wide receiver room. The receivers listed behind Chris Don Jr., Langston Anderson, Oklahoma State transfer, didn't play a whole lot last year because he transferred in really late. And then Kylan Evans, true freshman from Frisco Emerson. He's a tall guy, 6'2" for Kylan Evans, 6'1" for Langston Anderson. So there's some height in the depth, but that starting unit is not very tall. No offense to any of those guys there. Behind Cole Wilson, we have Drew Donley and Isaac Norris. Drew Donley could be the fastest guy on the team now that Malik Hornsby is off to Arkansas State playing receiver. Everybody else forget that one. We'll see him later down the road in the season. But behind Joey Hobart, we have Bo Sparks, the Utah Tech transfer. They have that in common. Hobart and Sparks, both Utah Tech transfers. Shout out to Megan Webb. She's an SID at Tech State. Also worked at Utah Tech for a while. Jordan Martin, true freshman. He's behind Bo Sparks. And then Cannon Webb. Let's go, Cannon Webb. San Marcos Rattler right there. Go get him, bud. Rooting for 27. Rooting for all of them, but some guys you can't help but pull a little bit more for. Behind Jaden Williams, Drew Donley again. So twice he's listed at two different wide receiver positions. That tells me he's going to rotate in pretty often. Jalen Griffin, who was the Tulane Central Florida transfer, and we talked about that situation. Played at Tulane, transferred to Central Florida, but didn't do anything there. Just spent a semester and transferred to Texas State. And then Dylan Rhodes behind Jalen Griffin. That makes up your receiver room. Pretty deep at receiver as far as name-wise, not necessarily as experience-wise. Like when we talk about how deep the running backs are, a lot of those guys have ran for a lot of yards already. I mean, I imagine looking at it, I'm pretty sure every guy on this list has at least 500 yards rushing in college for running back. Not a lot of receptions with these receivers, but a lot of talent. So we'll get to see it displayed on the field. Let's go to the offensive line. Left tackle, no surprise, except there's an or by his name, but there's a reason for that. Left tackle, Nash Jones, listed as number 1. Dorian Strawn, listed as number 2 at left tackle, and they have an or. And then if you go to left guard, Dorian Strawn, listed as number 1 left guard. Nash Jones, listed as number 2 left guard. So it's going to seem like they may be switching those two in and out. Sometimes we may see Strawn out at tackle and Nash Jones to the inside, and vice versa. I would imagine that they are wanting to play both of them on the field as much as they can. So I don't think this is an either or situation. It's where are we going to put both of these guys, probably their 2 best offensive linemen. Where are we going to put them? Shows good versatility for all of them. Sully Burns, also listed at left tackle. We talked a little bit about left tackle when we were breaking down the depth chart and how we saw him there. He got really high praise from GJ Kinney. Great stuff from that press conference. And, in the presser pods, I guess I've been trying to load them, and the hosting software that we load them to, I guess it stopped those last 2, and I hadn't catched it. This time I went in, I saw a little red mark in there. So if you haven't been getting those presser pods, sorry about that. That's a user error on my end, but we're going to correct that. So I'll make sure to get the one from this week up there because Kenny talked a lot about the offensive line, some really good stuff. Starting center, we have Chase Todd, who was a guard last year, Houston transfer, didn't play a ton last year, but got into the mix. Was always talked about as a really good player. They put him at center, really got the snapping down and everything. A bit of a surprise behind him, somewhat of a surprise, at least surprise this week, with Ezra Dotson Oyetade, who transferred in from TCU very, very recently in fall camp. He is already listed as the backup center. He's battling out with Brock Riker, though. Shout out Brock Riker. That's a true freshman getting in there for that backup center spot. At right guard, we have an or between Talik Lockett, the ULM transfer, all Sun Belt second team last year, and Alex Harkey. Harkey is also listed as the number 1 right tackle, with Trenton Scott right behind him with an or. So Harkey is another versatile guy like Strawn and Nash on the left side. On the right side, you have Harkey that they may want to push to the inside in some packages, may put him on the outside on other packages. Below Harkey, though, on at right guard. So the third right guard listed, Justin DeLeon, who he transferred in. He was at one point a Baylor commit, true freshman last year, listed as a guard last year, or I'm sorry, a center last year. Came in as a center, but now he's playing guard. Below Trenton Scott at right tackle, we have Bammy Badusi, true freshman last year, and David Connor, Florida transfer for David Connor. Let's go to defense. Defensive end, no or for Stephen Parker. He's the one of the starting defensive ends. Incarnate Word transfer, 6'4", 263. That 263, it looks heavier than that. He looks 270, 275. That's a big guy. Jalazen Landry listed behind him. He was a true freshman last year, really worked his way into the rotation. He'll be utilized quite a bit this year. The second DN position listed, there's an or for who the starter is going to be between Bryce Bass, the Gardner-Webb transfer, and Devin Wright, who played last year, but he was a Boise State transfer. It would be interesting to see those two guys battle out. I talked about Bryce Bass earlier. He was a big guy. When I walked into camp, a big guy I hadn't recognized. He's brand new on the scene. I had to look him up because he's a massive guy. Him and Stephen Parker, big dudes. Because then Devin Wright is more of a slimmer defensive end, speedster off the edge. He's listed at 215. Yeah, 215 for Devin Wright. So, he's two different defensive ends. Give him different looks when you throw him out there. At the defensive tackle spot, no or for Dominic Ratcliffe. Shout out to Dominic Ratcliffe. 2 years ago, Louisiana transfer, came in as defensive end, moved to the interior, which was interesting because he was not skinny, but a lean defensive end. He played on the edge. You gotta have a little speed there. When they moved him into the interior, and now he's listed at 295 pounds. 6'3", 295 pounds. And I tweeted, if you follow me on Twitter, you may have seen, I was talking about the depth chart, and he was one player that I pointed out about his buy-in to that position switch, because that is a lot of weight this guy has put on. He is fully committed to, like, okay, you want me on the interior defensive line? I'm going to do it. It's a totally different. Yeah, they're on the same line of scrimmage and they're on the same side of the ball on defense, but those are two different positions. They'll work together. They'll do stunts and they'll move around and everything, but those are that's quite a change, quite a drastic body change for him. So shout out to Dominic Ratcliffe. I know he's been working really hard to get there. And then Alex Merritt listed below him, Eastern Michigan transfer, I believe. Alex Merritt, new guy on the scene. At the other defensive tackle spot that they have listed, Terry Webb. He was a starter last year. He's a senior this year, 6'3", 315, big guy. He's back in there. Tunmise Adelaide, the Michigan State transfer, he's right behind Webb, and then Cameron Washington behind him. Played quite a bit last year, Cameron Washington. Nose tackle, we have Tavian Coleman. Remember Tavian Coleman from last season, Utah State transfer, really good player. Big fan of Tavian Coleman. Tavion and Terry, man, love that defensive lineup right there. And then Emma Police Lange behind him, the Houston transfer, big guy, 6'6", 312 pounds. So deep on this defensive line, and we're not even all the way there yet. We still have edge. You can consider that a linebacker or a D line. I consider a D line. Edge is more so like a D end. It's kind of what is the difference between a D end and an edge in today's football, and there's not much of one, but the way I look at it is defensive end, hand in the ground, edge, stand up, ready to rush the passer. But they're kind of they're a little interchangeable these days, the two terms. But at edge, we have Ben Bell. No surprise there. That guy, he's gonna be in the NFL next year. I even think he might be the highest draft pick for the Bobcats since Craig Mager, third round. I really do. I think he's we won't have to wait for undrafted free agent to hear where he's going to be playing next year. That's my hot take. That's my prediction. It's not that hot to take. It's really good. But behind him, Khalil Alexander. Shout out to Khalil Alexander getting in there. No or by him as the backup either. So I know Khalil's going to be getting a lot of time off the edge. And then Jeremy Jackson Jr., freshman from Waxahachie, getting in there at the third unit. At the, I believe it's weak side linebacker, SLB. I imagine they are designating it weak side linebacker. Maybe they call it a will linebacker. I'm not exactly sure, but it's WLB. There's an or here for Kenny Haynes and Manny Nunnery. Kenny Haynes, talked about him running back in high school. He switched to linebacker when he was, or he played linebacker in high school, but he full-time linebacker in college, has just been behind some really good linebackers, finally starting to maybe break through that lineup a little bit. And then Manny Nunnery, he was a transfer, new on the scene this year, at middle linebacker, Mike linebacker, whatever they want to designate it. We have Max Harris listed, the ULM transfer, led them in tackles last year. He also has an or by his name for James Neal. Right below him, the UTEP transfer, and then Derek Mourning Jr. behind them for middle linebacker. At strong side linebacker, Sam linebacker, it's listed as an SLB. We'll call it the strong side. Traylon, they have oars all up and down this one for the three players there. With Traylon Payne, he's a transfer. Torrey Spears, who has been playing safety. Interesting to see him listed at this linebacker designation. And then Khalil Alexander again at that SLB, who I mentioned was the second string defensive end. So good to see Khalil popping up in two different spots there. At corner, the two starting corners, we have Chris Mills and Josh Eaton. We remember them from last year. No change really from them. But behind Chris Mills, Trez Moore, Dante Thompson, and Amarian Atwood. Behind Josh Eaton, we have Camden Grogan, who actually played at Lamar last year. So I bet this will be a fun game for him. Dante Thompson, the Arkansas State transfer, and Christopher Jones, who is a true freshman. Let's go to free safety. We have oars at safety all over the safeties. For free safety, we have Bobby Crosby or Darius Jackson. Bobby Crosby was on the team. He's been on the team before. So, same with Darius Jackson. He just missed. Darius Jackson missed last year with an injury. But both are returners. Both were on the team last year. Behind them, we have Ryan Nolan. He's a new player, junior college player. And William Mitchell, true freshman, coming in, fast guy. William Mitchell, track guy. Did a lot of good stuff in track in high school. Excited to see where his trajectory takes him. Strong safety, we have Caleb Culp or Torrey Spears. There's an or there. That'll be interesting to watch this strong safety spot to see who pops up there. But below them, we have Caleb Coleman. It's a West Virginia transfer. I was expecting to see him at that star position, Caleb Coleman, but they have him listed at strong safety. And then Tice Williams, true freshman, behind all of them. It's nice to see a true freshman kind of be an end cap for all of these depth charts. We'll go to specialist. Mason Shipley, no surprise there. He'll be kicking the ball. Punter, we have an or. Punter controversy. I told you there was one there. David Nunez or Lars Rao. Lars listed at 6'2", 200 pounds. That's a big punter. It's a big punter. Draw up some routes for him. Get some blocking in there, kid. Kick returner. We have an or Ishmati or Cole Wilson. Spoiler alert on that one. They will use both. That is a kick returning tandem right there. Both of them returned one for a touchdown last year. Then punt returner, Cole Wilson. He's listed as number one guy. Joey Hobart behind him at punt returner. So there you go. There's the depth chart. That's the Bobcats depth chart right there. Not a ton of surprise. I'm quickly scrolling my notes that I had from when I did that depth chart preview, just to see if there's a ton of changes. Yeah, that is a name I didn't see, is AJ Edwards. Did I miss his name? Alonzo Edwards. Oh, okay. The star position. I glossed over star positions. That's good. I'm glad I went over those notes. So, because there's so many defensive positions. There's 14. I assumed I went right past it. We had star position, that nickel corner position. We have Oars at the three names there. Jordan Polk, mentioned him earlier. He's a Texas A&M Commerce transfer. And then AJ Edwards, Alonzo Edwards, and then Justin Harris, who's a Cincinnati transfer. I expected to see Justin Harris at safety. In my for my notes, they switched Caleb Coleman and Justin Harris. They had Justin Harris at safety, Coleman at that star position, and it seems like they have switched at some point. So besides that one, not a ton of difference in who I was looking at. It seems like the same kind of guys. I didn't see Tymir Jackson listed. I talked about him a little bit. Let's see, who else didn't we see listed? Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. So it was about what was anticipated for some of these starting lineups. Nothing that was too surprising out there. But man, what a unit. What a group. Still have maybe some questions at safety, but we'll see how it looks out there. I know it'll be if this it'll be a great first game. It's nice for the Bobcats to start the season not against a P4, not against a big program. It will be an FCS program, a little bit of a lighter opponent to when the Bobcats dip their toes into the water of the 2024 season. Let's do it. Let's talk about the Lamar Cardinals. Get a little bit of a Lamar preview for this game tomorrow night. Late game, 7 p.m. kickoff. Very much looking forward to that. Texas State, they are favored by 31.5 points. That's quite a bit. But let's talk about Lamar. Their coach, Pete Rosamondo. I like that. Italian? Must be Italian. He's from Staten Island, New York, so I think that is Italian. He's a former offensive lineman at Boston College. He's been an offensive line coach like Vanderbilt and a few other schools that eventually led to him getting the head job at Lamar before last season. This will be his second year as the coach. They went 6-5 his first year, respectable 6-5. They, at least got over that 500 winning hump. They returned a lot of really good players as well on offense, but specifically defense. And we'll talk about their defense here in a bit. This is a tough-nosed team. I just mentioned their coach is a former offensive lineman, longtime offensive line coach as well. So you can imagine that grittiness has been instilled in his team and even in their style of play. Just a tough front seven, hard hitting bunch, and they love to run the ball. I can expect no less from a former offensive lineman. They love to run that ball. Some former Bobcats that play for Lamar. I knew of one, but I was surprised by this first one I was going to say because I don't know why. I don't remember this player, but he's playing really well for Lamar. Wide receiver, Savane Ray. He played 2021 at Texas State as a redshirt, didn't get on the field. Then he transferred to Lamar, and he's been there ever since. He's one of their best players. In fact, he was all Southland's second team last year. So watch out for Savon Ray. And then a lot of you might recognize this name because he actually started a game last year. Uh, DB linebacker Ronnie Hamrick II. If you remember that name, he played for Texas State from 2021 to 2023. Mentioned that he started a game last year. Never fully broke into the rotation as a full-time player, but he was still in the mix quite a bit. He goes to Lamar and they give him number 6, and might be playing him at outside linebacker, maybe some safety, because they actually have some depth at DB. So it seems like that's why they have a talented player, move him to outside linebacker, let him guard some tight ends, maybe rush the passer a little bit. You could see that for Ronnie Hamrick. He's a pretty good player. I remember when he signed, he was one of their highest rated recruits. So he can play. I feel like maybe if I'm remembering correctly, I should have looked him up a little more before this. Central Florida signee before coming to Texas State. Similar to our guy Jalen Griffin playing receiver now for Texas State. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case. So that'll be interesting. So keep an eye out for Ray and Hamrick. They're gonna a little bit of a grudge match whenever you play your former team. But might be the same case for Texas State corner Camden Grogan, brand new player, transferred in from Lamar. So I bet that a little bit of a grudge match for him as well. We'll see if he can get into that rotation. As I mentioned earlier, the Bobcats are favored by 31.5 points. So if it is pretty lopsided, you're going to see the Bobcats empty out the bench, see what they've got at depth, so they can play some of these players, see what you got for the rest of the season. That's what they're anticipating, and that's you don't want to underestimate your opponent. Definitely, you saw Baylor do it to Texas State last year. We saw Florida State do it to Georgia Tech last week. So it's anything can happen. And I mean, even talking with GJ Kinney this week, he's talking, saying, I know what it's like being that FCS team going in against an FBS team, and you want to beat him, you want to send that message. When he was the coach at Incarnate Word, they went into Nevada and beat them. Was that like 50-44 or something like that? That was an FCS team that beat an FBS team. We saw it in 2021 before GJ Kinney was the coach at Incarnate Word. That Incarnate Word team, led by Cam Ward at quarterback, Miami's quarterback right now, beat the Bobcats in San Marcos. That was a crazy one. 25 players missed because of COVID, a year after COVID for the Bobcats. What a weird game. But you don't want to underestimate any opponent. That being said, I went through the coach's show for Coach Pete Rossamondo. Listened to his coach's show. Just wanted to hear what he had to say about Texas State, and I made sure to write down this specific quote that he said about Texas State because gives me a feeling of just where his mindset is playing the Bobcats. Here's what he said. This is from Rossamondo on Monday. He had his coach's show. Quote, Texas State beat the brakes off of Baylor last year, that first game. I'd rather play Baylor than play Texas State right now. We play the people that are on our schedule. That's just the way it is. Lamar, director of athletics, Jeff O'Malley, and I make all those decisions together on who we play. This one was scheduled long before I got here, but I'm not looking back and wanting to change it. Let's go play. Let's have some fun. And let's see if we can't get them into the fourth quarter. End quote. That sounds like a coach to me it is not excited to play this Texas State team. I mean, the Bobcats are at full force in 2024. It was actually a question from the host. I didn't even write that part down where the host said, hey, you get to play a G5 team instead of like a P4, and then that make the competition a little bit closer. And that's when he said, not really. Look at that Baylor game last year. This is a pretty good G5 team. So shout out to the respect for Rossamondo. That not a ton of confidence in that statement though. If I was a Lamar Cardinals fan hearing that, I wouldn't be the most excited hearing the head coach say something like that. Hey, this was scheduled before me. We got to go out there and do it, but hey, let's have some fun. See if we can get him in the fourth quarter. So there you go. A little bit of a mindset check for the Lamar Cardinals on that one. But even with that, you don't want to underestimate them. This was a respectable team last year, and they've got some really good players. All of them, a lot of them are returning. They're really been able to get some good players in the transfer portal. Let's talk about some of their players to watch though on offense and defense. We'll start on offense first. I wouldn't say their best player, but their most important player, Robert Coleman, the quarterback. He's a senior from California, second year at Lamar. Started his career in junior college. 11 starts last year, started every game. They don't pass the ball a ton, as I was saying, but he was still able to pass for 1,904 yards, 16 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, 60% completion rate. Those are pretty good passing numbers for the limited amount of passing this offense does. And he added 170 yards rushing and a touchdown. So he's a serviceable quarterback. He's an experienced quarterback as a senior. He's very familiar with this system. He's very familiar with this coach and what he wants to do after a year playing under him. So, definitely not somebody to underestimate. Robert Coleman out there for Lamar under center. This next player I'd say is probably their best offensive weapon is number 6, running back Kalen Griffin. He's a 2-year starter. He's a senior. He was all Southland's second team last year, 5'10", 210 pounds. So he packs a wallop when he runs the ball. He's gonna, the stats aren't great for Lamar. I gotta, if I have to bash them a little bit, you guys got to keep up with the stats better on your website. But didn't go over 1,000 yards either season, but was over 600 each season. I can tell you that. So it's been cranking away. And then they were also able to bring in Xavier Coleman from Boston College at running back. He'll be wearing number 0. Like I was saying, they like to run the ball a lot, and they're going to be using more than one running back. So expect Xavier Coleman to get in the mix as well. 2 Colemans on the offense, one at quarterback, one at running back. I don't think they're related. Not exactly sure though. But watch out for that running back room. They have a third running back as well. And I don't know why I didn't put his name down. I know if I look at their roster real quick, I'll be able to clock it. Because I know this is a guy, he's been on their team. Major Bowden. That's right, because I like his name as well, from Waco, Texas. He's someone that will probably get in the mix as well. That's number 2 for Major Bowden. So they like to run the ball, so I would imagine they'll use a lot of those running backs. They have a pretty solid offensive line. Like I mentioned, this coach, Pete Rossamondo, former offensive line coach. He has a real sharp unit there on the offensive line. That was something that Kenny was specifically talking about at that Tuesday press conference, just how much continuity there is between the offensive linemen and the tight ends and their blocking schemes and how they do everything. It's just very technically sound, very sound on that offensive line. But I will say that's their strongest aspect on offense is this running game and a strong offensive line. I like the Bobcats' chances with this deep defensive line that we just went over. We talked about all those defensive linemen for the Bobcats. That bodes well when you're going up against a team that is going to be running the ball a lot and they're going to lean on that line of scrimmage. At least you have the firepower to compete there. Now this might be their best player all around. He's at least their best player on defense, but at nose tackle, big number 99, Caleb Williams, all Southland's second team last year, 57 tackles at nose tackle. That's a lot of tackles at the nose tackle position. 6 for a loss, 3 pass deflections at the line of scrimmage as well, which is interesting because he's only 5'11", 290 pounds. You can imagine that somebody listed at 5'11", 290, coming out of high school, he wasn't near 290. I bet he was probably very underestimated for his size. And he goes to an FCS school and has played really, really well. He is a force. Don't let that 5'11" height fool you. I mean, especially when it's a guy on the interior of the defensive line, you don't necessarily need someone whose head scrapes the ceiling. You could have kind of a more lower center gravity guy who can get underneath the pads of a bigger offensive lineman, maybe slip in between the gap between some of these linemen with a not the largest frame ever, but real shifty. Number 99, Caleb Williams on their defensive line. Keep an eye for him. Inside linebacker number 0, Jalen Freeman, 2-year starter at inside linebacker, second on the team with 5 TFLs and 3 sacks last year. He's a pretty good player as well. Jamon Jackson, 2-year starter at defensive end, led the team with 7 TFLs, 3.5 sacks last year. It's number 4, Jamon Jackson. I made some notes about their corners, and I don't know why. I must have accidentally deleted it or something, but I can actually check this real fast. Yeah, Ramon Stevens, number 3, second team all Southland Conference, excuse me. And then Damian Alexander is a really good DB for them as well. Let me see. Who is that other one that I was looking for? Christian Pugh. That was the other one. He was also all Southland second team. So even though we talk about their strong front seven and everything, they've got some really good players, some really good DBs, and they're real deep at DB on defense. All in all, like I said, the Bobcats are favored by 31.5 points. I feel that Texas State is ready to go. Talking with players this week, talking with the coaches this week, doesn't seem like anybody is underestimating this team. I know Dorian Strawn specifically, he also referenced he knows what it's like being an FCS player coming in from Incarnate Word and wanting to beat an FBS team. So they're going to be bringing the heat. You know what? Actually, for a preview, I wrote that quote down from Dorian Strawn. Let me see if I can find that one real fast. Yeah, they are solid up front, Dorian Strawn said of Lamar. They are going to blitz us. They are going to try and bring it early. I've been to smaller school. We're coming in against an FBS school. You want to bring the heat and put it on them early. I know they are going to play hard. It's going to be their Super Bowl, and they are going to try to come and get us. We've just got to be more physical up front and stay disciplined. And just feel like hearing a lot of that from everybody, not a lot of underestimating in this game. And hopefully it is a game where they can grab a big lead and start working in some of this depth. And we could see some of these other Bobcats that we just named off on the depth chart. But there you go. There's your preview. As far as my prediction, I hate a score prediction. I think the Bobcats will beat that spread 31.5. I'm starving for football. I'm hungry. And the only thing that is going to satiate that craving is a 50 burger. That's what we need. 50 points from these Bobcats. They don't need a 50-point win. I'd like to see 50 points from this offense. Playing an opponent like this, you are projected to win by 30 points. Mac Leftwich, he likes serving up those 50 burgers. So let's see one on Saturday. That's something I would like to see from Texas State. I think they will beat that 31.5 spread, and I think they'll put up 50 points, and we'll get to see a little RJ Martinez, maybe some PJ Hatter, Brad Jackson behind center. That's what I think it's going to start out real well for this team. It's going to be up to them. Can't underestimate anybody, not even the Lamar Cardinals. But that'll do it. Game is tomorrow, 7 p.m. You can watch on ESPN Plus. Come check it out live if you're around San Marcos. If you're not around a TV, 89.9 for the radio. Do whatever you got to do to make sure you check it out. But check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/winnoworgetbent. We're activating our great intern, Reese Largent, who's going to come on the pod next week at some point. We're bringing him on. We're activating him to we're going to get this Patreon going, get it popping over there. Check out WNOGB.com. You can get the sweet sicko shirt like I'm wearing right here. You can get great coffee cups, a lot of great swag over there at WNOGB.com. Check out our YouTube channel, Win Now or Get Bent on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, sign up your friends for an account. We're getting so close to 500. I want to push over 500. I don't want to ask for it too much. I like to see it just organically grow like it has been. You guys have been doing great. I really appreciate everyone out there supporting the pod. Check us out on Twitter at Win Now or Get Bent on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. On Instagram at WNOGB. Like, subscribe, comment, all our stuff, all that good stuff. Big thank you to First Lockhart National Bank, McNabb and Co., the Galindo Collective, and Chilsey.com. Of course, the great producer, Zachary Webb. Thank you for always making this podcast look great. And you sickos out there, I'd be shouting out to the void if it weren't for you always tuning in. It's a big year. You heard those new sponsors. It's a lot of you consistent, always coming in and listening, getting those numbers up. That's been great for us. We're going to continue to grow, and we'll have more sponsors to announce throughout the season. So can't wait for that. A lot of growth for Win Now or Get Bent, and a lot of that is on the shoulders of our great listeners, you awesome sickos out there. So thank you all very much. Here we go. 2024 season incoming. Who's ready? I'm ready. Let's get it. Win now or get bent. Oh, yeah. There you go, Webby Debbie.